Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Izuku had Regeneration quirk, and got Harem with Toga, Camie, Toru and Mina, part 1. So before we start, please go check out the author of this fanfic, alexluquir, link is in the description, also subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's begin the video. The whole testing site was pretty much in complete chaos. Students were running everywhere using their variety of quirks, destroying robots left and right, which was the exact same case with Izuku, who was rapidly gaining points. He had been sprinting around the more open areas of the testing site, while completely abolishing every single robot he could find, all while still helping people whenever he could. Still, on his own, he was confident with the points he had gotten. He was up to 56 points with 4 minutes left of the exam, and after the extremely easy written part that was done beforehand, he really was certain that he had gotten into the school. Currently, Midoriya had just finished ripping an arm off a 1-pointer before using that exact same arm to break in a 3-pointer, which only helped add to his already stellar score in the test. And once he was done with that robot, he simply decided to relax for the remaining time. Or at least he was planning on taking it easy until the 3-minute mark was announced, and along with it, a hulking robot which he assumed was the 0-pointer was released into the makeshift city, crashing through the buildings and throwing everyone into a panic. Hell, even Izuku was just thinking of walking away from it instead of injuring himself. It wasn't like he was worried about getting hurt or anything though. He just knew it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it until he heard a girl yell out in pain. He immediately turned over to look in the direction of the sound, and noticed a brown-haired girl pinned underneath a large piece of rubble. Taking a quick glance at the fast-approaching 0-pointer before groaning out loud, "God, I'm definitely gonna break something now. And I was doing so well." Izuku shook his head, and sprinted over to the girl, looking down at her pained face, an expression for a quick second before lifting the rubble off her with ease. "Are you hurt or anything? Can you move?" he quickly asked the tearful girl still on the ground, furrowing his eyebrows slightly, as she quickly shook her head. "No, I think I hurt my ankle, but you should run. That robot is getting closer," the girl called out, as she attempted, and struggled to stand up, only managing to get onto her knees before looking back towards the 0-pointer with a clearly fearful expression. Izuku, without saying a word, quickly lifted the girl up in a bridal-style carry, and rushed off to where everyone was heading, quickly noticing the blue-haired asshole who had called him out during the exam's presentation, approaching him without a second thought. "Glasses, here you take her, and get out of here. I'm gonna try and do something which I'll most likely regret. Yeah, I'll definitely regret it." The green-haired boy spoke while carefully handing the girl to the taller teen, who simply looked at him with wide eyes before rushing off without a second thought. "Alright, this robot is massive. I don't think I can manage to climb it without my baton, but there's always another option." Izuku smiled, as he looked over at a building which even towered over the 0-pointer, rushing over to it, and entering the empty place, sprinting up the stairs, and onto the roof just as the robot was passing by it. He instantly ran forward, and towards the ledge of the building, jumping off it, and managing to land right on top of the 0-pointer's head. He was pretty sure he bruised a few ribs, but it didn't matter, as they healed within a split second. "Shit, what do I do now?" Midoriya yelled out, as he kept himself balanced on top of the moving robot, looking all over it frantically before finally finding exactly what he was looking for, a very obvious and weak-looking panel, just a few meters away from him. And so, he rapidly got onto his feet before sliding on the smooth surface of the 0-pointer's head, reaching the panel easily before simply punching into it, causing the robot to completely stop moving, as it was shut down. "That was a lot easier than what I expected, I can't complain though now. How the hell do I get down from here?" Izuku chuckled, as he carefully stepped near the edge of the robot's head, a bright smile suddenly appearing on his face, as he jumped off it without a second thought. "Superhero landing," he called out just as he was about to hit the floor, falling down on one of his knees while punching the ground, very much just copying the classic landing heroes did in comic books, the only difference here being that Izuku completely shattered his knee, leg, and arm. He didn't really care though. He wouldn't have jumped off if he wasn't certain that he was gonna heal in a few seconds. "Ugh, I'm never doing that again unless the situation calls for me to show off," he spoke to himself, groaning softly, as he stood up, and looked around the testing ground, almost at the exact same time that present mic called for it to end. "And time's up. Everyone exit slowly or stay in case of injuries." Yeah, Izuku could only laugh softly at the pro-hero's excitable behavior, even when talking about injuries, once again taking another look around the place. This time though, he quickly noticed seemingly every other applicant looking over at him with shocked expressions due to his actions, with only a few seeming somewhat different. The only one that really stood out though was an admittedly cute blonde with yellow cat-like eyes, and a fanged smile, staring at him with a light blush covering her cheeks. That wasn't all, as she seemed to be drooling almost. That bit was weird. She was still fairly cute though. Izuku wasn't really sure why she was looking at him like that anyways, which only added to his confusion until he noticed his current attire, that being only the sweatpants he was wearing, with his shirt being completely gone, and exposing his chiseled torso to everyone. Instead of getting embarrassed, as most would though, he simply flashed the blonde a smile, and began to walk towards the exit of the testing ground, with everyone still simply staring at him in shock, including the blue-haired teen and girl he had saved earlier. What just happened? It was finally the first day of class for Izuku, and for every other student who had managed to make it into whatever course U.A had to offer, and he was ecstatic about finally training to become a hero. With a slightly unconventional quirk like his, it was hard to picture him as a hero, when the only thing he could do was just heal incredibly fast, but, as time went on, somehow his quirk evolved into more, which only granted him more abilities to use, more abilities to become a hero. Still, even through all the excitement, he was a little worried about meeting his classmates. And all, especially after getting first in both the written and practical exams. He managed a perfect score on the written, and on the practical he got exactly 130 points, surpassing everyone else in every single test site. He had just reached the door to his class, which was at least 12 feet tall, and wide with a huge font signaling that it was indeed the room for Class 1A. Instead of stalling around anymore, and staring just at a simple door, Izuku quickly slid the door to the room open, immediately looking around the place with a bright smile, which didn't even falter at the chaotic scene in front of him. Don't put your feet on the desk. It's disrespectful to our past upperclassmen, and everyone in this room. Have you no shame? The blue-haired teen from the entrance exam called out to Bakugo. What do you care about for eyes? I can do whatever the fuck I want. What kind of shitty school accepted someone like you? I'm from Somei Junior High. My name is Tenya Ida. The now identifiable teen spoke up stiffly, chopping his arm in the air in a robotic manner. An elitist, huh? I'll have fun destroying you, you know-it-all asshole, Bakugo replied, standing up off his chair, and leaning forward on his desk, staring down Ida with a savage grin. Destroy me? Tenya flinched back with a shocked expression. Are you sure you're in the right place? What kind of hero threatens fellow classmates? From that point forward Izuku couldn't help but burst out laughing, which seemingly caught the attention of most people watching the heated interaction, as well, especially Ida's attention, as he quickly sprung forward and gave the green-haired boy a bow. Good day, I am Tenya Ida from Somei. I must apologize for misjudging you before, and even during the entrance exam, you even realized its true purpose while I did not. I am inferior to you, and I hope we can still get along well, he called out loud, once again stiffly moving his arms around, which prompted Izuku to let out a soft chuckle, as he waved his hand in front of himself. Don't worry about it, I wasn't exactly being respectful anyways. I'm Izuku Midoriya, and that loud douche you had the pleasure of meeting is Katsuki Bakugo. Not really a fun guy, huh? Izuku questioned with a small smile, glancing over at his old friend who simply glared at him with hateful eyes before shifting, and looking out the window, seemingly doing everything in his power to avoid looking at him. You are correct, he is a truly unpleasant person, the bespectacled boy spoke with a nod, glancing back at Katsuki with a raised eyebrow. Yeah, as long as you avoid him, you'll probably be fine, Izuku continued, cutting himself off, as he felt a soft tap on his shoulder, quickly turning around. Could you maybe move out of the doorway? I kinda wanna get through. The same blonde girl from the exam spoke softly before looking up at Izuku, her face immediately lightening up with a faint smile and wide eyes, as she began to bounce in her spot slightly. Wait, you're that hot guy who took out the 0-pointer. I'm Himiko Toga. You looked so cool during the exam. She clapped her hands slightly, still excitedly bouncing on her spot, as Izuku just smiled. Yeah, I'm that one hot guy. He quickly chuckled, offering his hand to Toga, who instantly took it and shook vigorously. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Just call me Izuku though. I don't really mind. Midoriya spoke, pulling his hand back from the admittedly cute girl once she was done shaking it. Okay, Izuku-in, call me Toga. Oh, do you want to go on a date with me? Himiko asked Izuku boldly with the exact same cheerful expression as before, completely ignoring how the almost filled up room went quiet until someone spoke up. Just not, Izuku. I'm gonna stop you right there. You've been here for almost 5 minutes and still haven't even noticed me. Not even all the students have arrived, which is already bad for you all. Now shut up and listen. Everyone go change into your PE uniforms and head out to the sports field. No questions. A yellow caterpillar said assertively, looking over the classroom just as the last few students arrived. A pink-skinned and haired girl along with the brunette from the exam whom Izuku had saved, who seemed to lighten up as soon as she had seen him, even through the confusion washing over the room. Oh god, this is worse than I thought. My name is Shoyuta Aizawa or Eraserhead. I'm your teacher this year, go get changed, and be out in 10 minutes or you're expelled. Hurry up. Everyone simply kept quiet, and ran out of the room to go change into the uniforms, which supposedly were in the changing rooms already. Still, everyone could only think one thing. What just happened? Soon, all of Class 1A had followed the orders given by their teacher, and were currently in the sports field, waiting for instructions. As Aizawa simply stood there going through some papers, Izuku simply decided to get ready for whatever was to come, and began to do some stretches, completely oblivious to the stares he was getting from his female classmates. Even if he did notice them though, it didn't matter. He had pretty much gotten used to it after going through puberty. He wasn't the same scrawny boy as when he was a kid, as now he stood at exactly 6 feet, with a slim, but still muscular build, defined jaw, and handsome face. Or at least he thought he was handsome by how many times his mom had told him so. He trusted her judgment. Midoriya had just continued to stretch even, as Hinako came up beside him, and started to mimic him, following his movements perfectly somehow, as she spoke up. You know, I didn't get an answer to the date proposal before, Izuku. I kinda want one now before the other girls try something with you. She smiled, glancing back at the rest of her female classmates, some who looked away with a small blush decorating their cheeks. Most noticeably the brown-haired girl from the exam, another blonde with plump lips and brown eyes, as well as the pink-skinned and haired girl, all of whom seemed to be caught off guard by Toga's call-out. Oh right, I forgot about that. Sure then. We can work out everything later. I don't really want to get yelled at again. Izuku chuckled, and stood up straight once again, glancing over at Aizawa, who simply nodded at his words, and turned to face the large group of students. Right. Today you will all undergo 8 tests that you've already done before in middle school. Just some simple physical fitness tests, only this time you'll be allowed to use your quirks. I don't care how you apply them, but just know that you can use them, the scruffy teacher explained, scratching over the top of his head before looking over at Bakugo. Bakugo, you got the most villain points in the practical exam. What was your record softball pitch? I think it was 90 meters or something, Katsuki replied, as he stepped forward, and away from the larger group of students. Aizawa nodded, and proceeded to pull a softball out of a gym bag, tossing it over to Bakugo before signaling him forward onto the outlined circle on the ground. Now throw the ball, as far as you can with your quirk. You can do whatever, as long as you don't exit the circle, he ordered, stepping back a bit to give his students some space. Bakugo only gave a nod before preparing his throw, grasping the ball firmly before letting it fly with a loud yell. Dai! Amongst the group of students, Izuku could only laugh at the call-out his old friend gave, while the others simply waited for his score to be pointed out, as Aizawa's small device beeped. 705 meters, not bad at all. What the hell? That's so far, shouted a male with spiky red hair and pointed teeth. How are we even supposed to surpass that? Another boy with blonde hair and a black streak going through it called out loud in disbelief. These similar reactions kept on going until the pink-skinned girl just had to say something to trigger the devil. The devil being Aizawa, who had apparently been waiting for someone to speak up just like she did. Oh, this looks fun. She bounced in place a little, looking back at the invisible girl who just nodded along with her excitement until noticing the look on their teacher's face. His stoic look was quickly replaced by a manic grin. Fun, you say? Were you planning to spend these years at the school having fun? He spoke up strictly, silencing all the students. Fine then. Whoever comes last in these tests will be deemed hopeless and immediately expelled from the school, with absolutely no chance of getting back in. Now isn't that fun? Aizawa said, still having the same unsettling grin on his face, seemingly unfazed by the complaints that came immediately after. What? It's only the first day. How is someone already getting expelled from here? This is completely unfair. Meanwhile, Izuku just nodded and smiled at his teacher, giving a few jumps in place as he waited for Aizawa to continue speaking. We teachers are free to do whatever we choose with our students, and their circumstances glared at Aizawa, as he slowly turned stoic once again, looking back down at his notepad. Welcome to Udata High Heroics course. Izuku knew that he was at a disadvantage with these tests, even despite his strength and speed being a lot higher than average. He just knew that most of his classmates were gonna do better, as they all probably had more versatile quirks than he did. Well, mostly all of them, except for the girl with the strange ears and the invisible one. Those 2 quirks were easy to figure out, and he knew that they didn't have much of an advantage either. First up was the 50-meter dash, which started with Mina Ashido, the pink-skinned girl, and Yuga Aoyama, a blonde boy who was apparently French. He also sparkled somehow. Both of them did fairly well while displaying their quirks, some type of acid and a laser respectively, with Ashido getting 5.25 seconds and Yuga 5.56 seconds. The second pair to go was Tenya and Tsuyu Ajui, the girl with some frog-like characteristics. The trial ended with Ida getting 3.02 seconds while Tsuyu managed to get 5.51 by using her powerful legs to jump. Then came the brown-haired girl who Izuku had saved during the exam, Ochako Uraraka, and with her, Toga, the slightly strange, but still cute blonde who had already asked him out on a date. They managed to get 7.13 and 6.54, with Toga being the fastest of the two. From there he got a grasp at Ochako's quirk, which seemed to negate or cancel out gravity, but surprisingly, Himiko hadn't shown her quirk off yet. She was just extremely fast on her own. From there, the pairs kept being called out and running the track. Izuku from Aizawa's announcements managed to get every name of the rest of his class, almost immediately memorizing them, as they went up to do the test. There went Denki Kaminari, Eijiro Kirishima, Rikido Sato, Mizo Shoji, Kyokajiro, Camie Utsumishi, Koji Koda, Hanta Siro, Fumikage Tokoemi, Shoto Todoroki, Toru Hagakure, and Momo Yaoyorozu. All of their scores ranged from 3.46 to 6.47, with Todoroki and Momo getting the top scores while Kyoka got the slowest of the scores. Finally, Izuku was called up along with Bakugo, who was already grinning like a madman, as he was sure he was gonna win. And if Izuku was being honest, that would probably be the case. The two got into their respective running positions and took off as soon as Aizawa was called out to them, with Bakugo blasting forward while Izuku simply sprinted his way towards and across the finish line. As expected though, Katsuki ended up with a score of 3.36 while Izuku managed to get 4.02, which was still a good score considering all the others, and that was all with the diminutive physical boost he got from his regenerative quirk. Ha! Take that, you shitty Deku, you're still beneath me, and you're still useless, Bakugo called out, and boasted with a laugh, while Izuku simply smiled, ignoring the mostly shocked and confused expressions his classmates had. Oh yeah, I'm completely useless. I practically ran that almost quirkless while you used your explosions. Take some time to think about that. Midoriya retaliated with a slight head shake, walking back to the rest of the group, who now looked more surprised at the immense speed he demonstrated while going basically without a quirk. Wait, did you really run that fast without using your quirk? How is that even possible? The blonde he now knew, as Kaminari asked, while Izuku just answered with a small shrug. Yeah, not everyone was flashy or really physical quirks, you know? I mean, mine is just an extremely quick regenerative factor, which helps keep my body in peak condition. That's probably one of the only reasons I can run that quick. Well, that, and training. He smiled at Kaminari, who just nodded, and gave him a thumbs up in response, seemingly still somewhat impressed by his display of speed. After a few minutes of rest, Aizawa moved on to the next test, which simply consisted of gripping a machine to find the grip strength that way. In this test Izuku did fairly well, getting 246 kilograms with his slight strength boost. He wasn't anywhere near the top scorers though, as the boy with multiple arms managed to score 640 kilograms. As soon as that trial was done, everyone moved on to the next one, and kept speeding through the tests, with everyone getting a variety of different scores ranging from good to bad. Izuku himself mostly managed to stay on the better half of the scores, while still not getting any stellar results. The final trial came up quickly after the class had zoomed through the tests, wrapping up everything with the ball throw. Bakugo was excused from this trial, as he had already gotten his score, and could only stare and rage in silence, as some people continued to beat his score. Uraraka had gotten infinity, which was unbeatable, and undoubtedly ended up with the top score, while Momo got 1.2 kilometers with the use of a cannon she created. Along with those two top scorers came Todoroki with 632 meters, and Izuku, who scored 326 meters. Once all the trials were done, Aizawa popped up a screen displaying all of their names and rankings, with every single student looking absolutely petrified at what their possible scores would be in the end. The list went: 1. Momo Yaoyorozu, 2. Katsuki Bakugo, 3. Shoto Todoroki, 4. Ida Tenya, 5. Fumikage Tokoemi, 6. Mashireo Ojiro, 7. Mizo Shoji, 8. Izuku Midoriya, 9. Eijiro Kirishima, 10. Koji Koda, 11. Toga Himiko, 12. Mina Ashido, 13. Tsuyu Ajiri, 14. Ochako Uraraka, 15. Rikido Sato, 16. Camie Utsumishi, 17. Hanta Siro, 18. Denki Kaminari, 19. Yuga Aoyama, 20. Kyokajiro, 21. Toru Hagakure, and, as expected, the invisible girl almost immediately began to cry and complain, both in frustration and just in pure sadness of not managing to stay in the school. It was just terrible to think that someone would be expelled on the first day, but that wasn't the case in the end. Oh right, the whole expulsion thing was fake. It was a logical ruse to get you all to try your hardest and push your limits. You did well, Hagakure. You all did. Aizawa suddenly spoke up, and, as soon as he finished, Toru immediately threw her arms in the air triumphantly before hugging Mina, and the rest of the girls who went to comfort her. Izuku simply watched from afar with a small smile before looking over at the gravity girl, who was jogging up to him excitedly, and with a blinding smile, as well. Hey, I didn't really get the chance to say this before Aizawa-sensei pulled us out here, but thanks for saving me during the entrance exam, and all. You were really cool there, and thanks again. I really appreciate what you did, and I'm glad we're both in the same class. Uraraka spoke softly, the permanent blush marks on her cheeks only growing, as she kept on going before finally stopping, and nodding her head vigorously. Yeah, it was no problem, really. I mean, anyone would have done it, you know? You were in trouble, and I probably just happened to be the one closest near you plus. Once you got to safety, that gave me the chance to try a superhero landing after shutting off the zero-pointer, Izuku said excitedly, looking down at the brown-haired girl with a wider smile than before, as her cheeks got slightly more flushed for some reason. Well, I'm glad I could give you that chance then. She beamed right back at him, bouncing on the balls of her feet. Though you seemed really hurt after you landed, I mean, you fell like 100 feet. I didn't even know how you were okay back then, but since you told us your quirk, it makes a lot of sense now. Uraraka nodded again, suddenly helping out loud, as Toga was standing right beside her, seemingly appearing out of nowhere, just staring down the brunette. Ichem, I thought you were gonna try to flirt with Izuku for a second. I'm glad you didn't though. He already agreed to a date with me, you know? Isn't that great? Himiko giggled loudly, bringing her hands up to her cheeks to cover the small blush that painted her face, turning to face, and talking to Izuku again before being stopped by the red-haired boy, Kirishima, calling out to them. Come on, you three, we have to head back to the classroom already. And with that, the three simply nodded, and followed along with them. Soon, the entirety of Class 1A was back in their classroom to pick up their curriculums before Aizawa decided on actually having everyone introduce themselves, going down the seating order, which was completely random to begin with. It was a good idea to actually learn at least a tiny bit more about each other. Izuku was sure that everyone probably only knew or had spoken to one or two people since their arrival at the school, so it was a good chance for everyone to really make friends, and also for everyone to understand each other's quirks. First up came Oyama, who took up at least 5 minutes to introduce himself while giving a very detailed description of his likes and dislikes, as well as of his quirk, Naval Laser. It basically gave the French boy the ability to fire sparkly laser beams from his stomach. A pretty strong quirk, if not for the fact that he could only use it in short 1-second bursts. Note, just intro through the whole class, as usual. I'm sure most of the people reading know the characters. It just feels like I'd be adding more words that don't really matter to the content. From there on, the introductions continued, and kept on going. Most of the quirks, and most of the things Midoriya's classmates said were pretty self-explanatory. Some had stronger quirks, some had weaker quirks, while others had just downright scary amounts of power with their quirks. The more interesting quirks in his class were of the last 3 people introduced, Toga's, Camie's, and Ochako. Uraraka's quirk was downright terrifying just for the fact that she could literally make someone float out into space just by touching them with her 5 fingers. She could just remove gravity from anything she touched, and that genuinely scared Izuku a bit, especially since his quirk was basically healing, and not something giving him long-range advantage. If he ever fought the gravity girl, he would just have to be incredibly careful not to get tagged by her. Then came Toga's quirk, Transform, which again, was just scary. It gave Himiko the ability to shapeshift into anyone, but only if she drank their blood. While it only gave the blonde the ability to take up someone's appearance and voice, it was still worrying. She had the perfect quirk for stealth and infiltrations. Utsumishi's quirk was called Glamour, and it gave the girl the ability to emit a smoke-like substance from her mouth to form visual and auditory illusions over a large area. This was scary in its own right, considering she could actually make people think they were hallucinating and just drive them to madness. And she could be able to trick literally anyone. Despite Camie's personality and strange speaking form that uses slang almost exclusively, Izuku knew she was someone to look out for. As Izuku kept on quietly thinking about every single application of every single quirk he had just been introduced to, he was interrupted by Toga tapping at his shoulder from behind him and pointing towards the rest of the class, who were all waiting for his introduction, as he was the only one left who hadn't said a word yet. Right, I'm Izuku Midoriya, and my quirk is basically just an extremely effective and quick healing factor, which also genetically enhanced my physiology, giving me a low rate of superhuman strength, agility, reflexes, and stamina. Also durability and speed. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm immune to any disease since I've never gotten sick. As for likes, I like heroes, and sleeping mostly. Also cheesy puffs, those are good. Izuku spoke, and finished off with a bright smile and nod, looking at his other classmates who had a variety of reactions to his introduction. Most of them just gave out a soft chuckle or simply nodded at his words, while Todoroki only narrowed his eyes at the green-haired teen, along with Bakugo, who let out a soft growl in annoyance apparently. The only other slightly different reaction was Toga, who giggled and rocked herself forwards and backwards on her chair. She seemed really excited for some reason, and Izuku would be lying if he said that he didn't find her a tiny bit weird. Though it was a good type of weird, for the time being at least. Once that was all done, Aizawa decided to stand up off the ground and exit his yellow sleeping bag, appearing at the front of the class again with the same stoic and annoyed look, as always. Alright, now there's only a few minutes left until class is over, so I'll let you have that time to speak among yourselves, and all, but before that, I'm obligated to speak about the dorm system which you were all supposed to be informed about at the introductory assembly. He spoke up, brushing the few stray bangs off his eyes before letting out a heavy sigh, clearly finding having to explain even a tiny thing annoying. You will all be free to move in either between today or tomorrow, hence why you have so much free time today. Tomorrow will be your first official day with regular classes and everything, but again, you can actually move in any time this week, either now or during the weekend. The dorm building is massive, you can't miss it, and your rooms are already assigned, and they're on the curriculum for each of you. That's it. Aizawa finished off with another sigh, sliding back down to the floor, and back into his yellow sleeping bag. The class stayed quiet for a few more seconds before breaking into loud conversations between small groups of people, most of them talking about living together, and everything to do with the new system U.A had already introduced. These groups of friends that had already been shaped excluded Izuku and Toga, as Midoriya had just stayed in his seat, while Toga had stood up from her spot behind him, and moved closer, sitting down on top of his desk with the same excitable smile she always had. Oh Toga, what's up? Why don't you like chatting with the other girls? I'm pretty sure they're all in a group except for you and Uraraka. Izuku spoke up, as he looked around the classroom, noticing Ochako sitting with Tenya, and chatting, Kirishima, Bakugo, and Kaminari in another corner of the room talking while the others were in larger groups altogether. You sure you don't want to go with them or something? I'm pretty certain that I'm not interesting enough for you to only want to talk with me. He chuckled, and smiled, turning to look up at the yellow-eyed blonde. Nah, I'm all good just with you, Izuku. Toga quickly shot back, swinging her feet slightly off the edge of the desk. I mean, they seem nice, and all well most of them, but I'm more interested in our date. I was thinking we could go to the beach. Oh, or maybe a fancy dinner? Do you own a suit? You'd definitely look good in a suit. She grinned excitedly, looking back down towards Izuku, and very clearly just checking him out. Sure, the beach could be fun. I live pretty close to Dagoba Beach, so we could go there, and grab something to eat afterwards too. It's kinda weird though, since the place used to be a dump a year ago, but it's all clean now. That doesn't really matter though. But how about we go after moving into the dorms, and all? During the weekend maybe? Midoriya suggested, tilting his head slightly to the side, as he waited for Toga's response, which came in the form of an excited giggle and nod. Yup, definitely. Let's go on Saturday. Try and wear a suit. Maybe. Oh, what should I wear for it? Toga giggled again, to which Izuku could only reply with a small smile and chuckle, only thinking to himself that he was probably in trouble. The girl seemed more like the psychotic girlfriend you'd see in movies rather than a regular girl. I'll let you decide that, Toga. You'll probably look good in whatever you wear anyways now. Come on. Class is over already, and I really just want to move my stuff into the dorms quickly and get that over with, Izuku said, picking up the curriculum off the desk before standing up along with the still excited Toga, following the rest of their classmates out of the room and building. This is probably gonna be a weird year, right? The green-haired teen wondered, as he walked out of U.A's gate with Toga before glancing over at the others from his class who were in a group. Bakugo just immediately noticed him looking over at them, and popped off some explosions from his palms to intimidate Izuku, which obviously didn't work. Kirishima and Siro simply waved at the two before turning back to Kaminari and Sato, who gave them a slight nod. On the girls' side of things, Ishido and Hagekure were apparently having the time of their lives gossiping already, since, as soon as they noticed Izuku walking with Himiko, they let out a loud giggle and brought up their hands in a heart shape to tease them, seemingly already thinking of them as a couple. Kyoka simply snickered at them, while Momo and Ajiri gave the two a small smile and nod, pretty much mimicking Kaminario and Sato. Camie only smiled and gave Izuku a sly wink. Ochako just blushed as she noticed the two, while Ida seemingly went on a rant about proper relationships and behavior, complaining to Uraraka about it, who quickly snapped out of her embarrassed trance and laughed at the blue-haired boys freak out. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a weird year. I'm probably fucked, Izuku thought, and looked down at Toga, who was happily skipping along with him to the train station with a bright, fanged smile adorning her face. I'm definitely screwed. Shit. After class had ended, Izuku did exactly as he said he was gonna do. he made his way back home after splitting ways with Toga, getting some help from his mom to pack up all of his things, which really wasn't a lot. Sure, he was a hero fan, but it wasn't as big of an obsession as it used to be. At least now he didn't yell out or look in awe at every single hero he recognized. Still though, his room was decorated with a fair amount of hero merchandise, mostly posters, and some figurines here and there. Izuku was only taking some of that to the Udata dorms still, as he knew that even if he was gonna move away, he was still most likely gonna stay home sometimes to either visit his mom or simply because he'd feel like it. It definitely was mostly to visit his mom though. Izuku, are you sure you don't want to take anything else? If this is all you're gonna move into your room at Udata, then it'll look a bit, well, bland. Inko spoke softly, as she pointed over at the 3 boxes in the corner of her son's room, looking back towards Izuku with a slightly worried expression. She wanted him to be comfortable more than anything, even if it pained her soul that he was moving out at such a young age. I'm positive. I know that doesn't mean much anyways, but yeah, I'll be good with all of this. The move is kind of sudden anyways, you know, so I won't take a lot right away. I just want to get settled over there quickly to not have to deal with all of this later. He nodded, and shrugged his shoulders slightly. And just think about it, it'll give me more chances to come and visit you. So yeah, I definitely don't want to take all of it. If I need something, I'll just come and get it. Izuku reassured his mother, stepping closer to her, and wrapping her up in a gentle hug. I'm just still worried about you. We were told this was going to happen anyways if you got into the U.A, but now that it actually is happening, I can't help but be even more worried than before. I just want you to be okay. The older Midoriya replied, as she hugged Izuku back firmly, holding him close for a few seconds before pulling back and wiping at her already teary eyes. I'll be fine, I promise. If I need anything, I'll be sure to tell you, and I'll call you daily, okay? Izuku attempted to reassure his mother again, who simply gave a small nod in return, and quickly hugged him once again before leading the way out of her son's bedroom. Okay, I trust you, son. Now come on, let's get going before the waterworks start. I don't want you to start teasing me about how much I cry again, and I definitely don't want to end up dehydrated because of it again. Inko smiled over at Izuku, who laughed softly while carrying the 3 decently sized boxes out the room, and eventually, out of the small apartment, and out of the building. He immediately set the boxes down in the small car Inko owned, as they got downstairs before stepping into the vehicle along with his mom. It wasn't long after that the two had arrived at U.A after a decently long ride, which was a hurricane of feelings. Both Inko and Izuku couldn't help but feel sad and excited about everything going on. The older Midoriya was happy for her son, but sad, as he was moving out so soon, while Izuku was excited to share the dorms with his classmates, but almost devastated about leaving his mother, hence all the promises he made beforehand about visiting. She had taken care of him, as a single mother, and had done a damn good job at raising him, even if he wasn't perfect. Inko was most definitely the most important part of his life. He wasn't just gonna go ahead and forget her. The 2 Midoriyas remained at the entrance of the dorms for a good 10 minutes saying their goodbyes, which was filled with tears from Inko's side while Izuku did his best to reassure the older woman. He was just glad it worked, and that she wasn't leaving completely depressed. Alright, Mom, I'm gonna start heading in, okay? I'll make sure to call you, as soon as I'm done with my room, and everything too. Just remember to drink water once you get home too, you're definitely a tiny bit dehydrated after all the tears. Izuku playfully poked fun at Inko, giving her one last right hug before letting go. I'll do just that, Izuku, and again, please be careful. I know you told me that your classmates were all nice, but one of them seems quite weird. She spoke with a small smile, and giggled, pointing over Izuku's shoulder, and at one of the large windows, where Toga could be seen waving excitedly at both of them. Izuku only gave a soft chuckle, and shook his head. Yeah, don't worry, she's nice too, a little on the crazier side from what I can tell, but still nice. He chuckled again, turning to face his mom again to say a few last words before the two parted ways, with the younger of the two heading towards and into the dorm building while Inko made her way back to the car and back home. And just like Izuku had expected, the moment he made it through the large doors with his boxes, he was approached by Himiko, still as excited and bubbly as ever. Izuku-in, was that your mom? She was really pretty, though I didn't know you were that big of a mama's boy. It's so cute, Toga called out loud, and giggled, as she stood in front of the green-haired boy, taking one of the 3 boxes he was carrying to help him with getting his possessions into his room. Yeah, also, you can't blame me for being like that. She's a saint. He smiled back at the excitable blonde who walked right beside him, as the taller of the two led the way to his room, which was obviously located on the boys' side of the building, as well as on the 3rd floor. The pair managed to get Izuku's things unpacked and set up in just about an hour before they made their way back downstairs, apparently just in time, as both Tenya and Camie arrived and entered the building together, both of them carrying large boxes. Midoriya-san, Himiko-san, salutations, Ida called out while bowing slightly, while Camie just looked at him weirdly before turning to the other two. Hey, what's up, fam? She spoke with a small wave, and smiled before setting the large box she was carrying down. Can one of you, help me carry my things? I would appreciate it. Camie smiled, keeping her eyes only on Izuku, completely ignoring the other blonde right beside him. Yes, I would appreciate some assistance. As well, I have plenty more boxes outside, though they are smaller, so I would suggest that Midoriya-san helps Utsushimi-san, and Himiko-san can help me. Tenya set his box down, as well, chopping an arm in front of him at a 90-degree angle repeatedly. Sure, we both already finished moving in, and all. The room keys are set up on the counter at the kitchen, by the way. They have their numbers, and everything, so pick that up later. The rooms are already unlocked. Izuku shrugged, and walked up to Camie, who happily led the taller teen out to help with her box, but not before Toga got a word in. Don't try anything with Izuku and Blondie. We're already going on a date, so keep your big pie away from him. The yellow-eyed girl spoke up with a small pout, stomping one of her feet on the floor before reluctantly going to help Tenya with his own boxes. Camie simply ignored Himiko, as she went to pick up a few of the smaller boxes, while Izuku carried the bigger ones to help the girl out. So, what's your deal with her? I mean, you seem totally lit, but Shorty is kinda crazy. You know what they say, bae. Never stick your dick in crazy. Giggled Camie, as she quickly eyed Izuku up, leading him towards the girl's side of the building. She kinda glued herself onto me immediately, and asked me on a date. I pretty much agreed to it because I knew she'd probably continuously bug me about it. Plus she kinda seems like my type of crazy, you know? Why do you ask? You want a piece of this or something? Izuku responded, smiling down at the brown-eyed blonde just as the two reached her room. Oh, definitely LMAO. You're the hottest guy in the class. I mean, that Todoroki is hot too, but he's, antisocial. So, you are the best thing. She smugly smiled back at Midoriya, setting her boxes down beside the bed settled in the corner of the room, with the other teen following suit. My mom always did say I was handsome. God, now between you and Toga, you're gonna make me the most egotistical guy ever. I'm already enough of an asshole with people. He laughed softly, walking back out of the room with the girl. LOL, what does that mean for me then? Do I have a chance or should I start showing my ass off more to ya? Camie asked with a smirk, and raised an eyebrow, stepping even closer to Izuku, and pulling his arm towards her, hugging the limb, and purposely pushing it against her bust. Is this working? We could cuddle too. She gazed up at the boy, who smiled down at her, and looked straight back into her larger eyes. Maybe, Izuku answered, stepping back into the main lounge area with Utsushimi. As soon as they did though, all hell broke loose, as the two just so happened to run back into Tenya and Toga, who were both carrying boxes. Well, a second later Ida was carrying all the boxes, as Himiko immediately dropped hers onto him, and stepped up to Izuku and Camie, prying the taller blonde off the green-haired boy's arm before standing right in front of her, looking up at Utsushimi defiantly. Alright, you big boob bimbo, I'm letting you get off easy this time, but try something with my Izuku again, and your fat ass is gonna be found knocked the fuck out in some dumpster, you get me? Toga said sternly, holding up one finger for Camie to see. One more time, and your ass is grass, bitch. She finished off with that, strutting up to Izuku, and mimicking what the other girl did earlier, hugging his arm firmly, as he kept quiet. Izuku was staying silent, and seemed completely calm on the outside, but his brain was working overtime with everything that had just happened. Jesus fucking Christ, she said, my Izuku-in, I'm so fucked. Why did I get stuck with the Yandra immediately? Just as he was slightly panicking, he felt Toga slightly tugging at his arm, gazing into his eyes intensely. Stay away from the bimbo, Izuku-in. She's just some random bitch, she whispered, her voice laced with venom. Midoriya simply snickered, and looked over at Tenya, who was staring at the scene with wide eyes as he had even dropped his boxes because of his classmates' display, actually left speechless, as he robotically lifted an arm up, which just meant he was about to reprimand them for their behavior. Shit, shorty, no need to getting your panties in a twist or anything. Ya ain't even dating Izu baby yet, bitch. Damn, Camie commented, and giggled loudly with a calm expression, adding fuel to the rapidly growing conflict. Himiko, on the other hand, was not calm. She pulled away from Izuku's arm in a split second, and began to move towards Camie before being stopped by Ida and Kirishima, the red-haired boy who came out of nowhere. Both of you stop. This behavior is completely unlike the one you Dada students should have. You two apologize to each other, and stop this meaningless fight, Tenya yelled out in a strict manner, while Kirishima chuckled while looking over at Izuku. Yeah, no need to make a bigger scene in front of half the class. He pointed towards the doorway with a nervous smile, as Toga actually let out a small growl, the girl completely unaware of the people watching the scene. Since the two blondes had begun insulting each other, more and more of their classmates had arrived, and simply stared at the scene, with the ones watching being Mina, Momo, Siro, Ajiri, and Ojiro, all of them either incredibly interested at what was happening or just completely shocked. Though, as the calm was slightly coming back to the large open room, with Toga simply hatefully staring at Camie instead of attempting to attack her, Izuku decided to open his stupid-ass mouth. So no cuddles then, Camie? He asked with a small chuckle and an amused smile. Also, I's a baby? What the fuck? Then all hell broke loose, as Himiko pounced once again. It was finally the first official day of class for Izuku and his classmates. It wasn't just a day where they had to exercise a bit and then leave. No, this time they had an entire day filled with regular classes, and the green-haired boy couldn't have been happier about it, especially after the chaos that was unleashed during the move-in. After he had once again triggered the already delicate situation with Toga and Camie, it took most of the afternoon to defuse it once again. It also took help from most of their classmates to calm Himiko down. Most of the help came from Izuku though, who somehow managed to make the two blondes get along a tiny bit better. Well, he still knew Toga absolutely hated Camie for flirting with him, even if he wasn't dating the yellow-eyed blonde yet. He actually found it kind of flattering that Himiko already thought of him that way. It actually slightly scared him, and slightly flattered him. Izuku just really wasn't expecting to have a girl obsessed with him, but he had to admit, the situation wasn't all that bad. At the moment, he didn't know Toga at all though. He basically just saw her as a cute blonde who had a crush on him, and on the other side of things was Camie, who had also openly admitted to liking him. He didn't really know what to do. As careless as he was, he didn't want to hurt either of them, so instead of just completely abandoning one of them, he came up with a small plan that he hoped would work. It was simple, it just consisted in going on separate dates with both of them, telling them each about the dates, as well, and just getting to know the two better, as all he knew so far was that Utsushimi spoke slightly weirdly, and was hot. What he knew about Toga was that she was cute, intense, and a tiny bit crazy. He was definitely interested in both of them. Camie just seemed like a fun, and obviously extremely attractive girl, while Toga just matched his type of crazy. She acted how she wanted, and didn't give a shit who saw or judged her. That was made even more evident after Izuku had showered and gotten dressed into his uniform before making his way down to the open area to have breakfast. Most of his classmates were already there, and ready to head to the main building for their actual first day, but Himiko apparently just didn't give a shit, as she sat up on the kitchen counter still in her pajamas, with her hair completely loose instead of in those buns she always wore. She immediately waved over at Izuku as soon as she saw him, and the boy happily waved back at her before looking over at Camie, who gave him a small smile which he quickly retaliated before making his way over to the fanged and messy-looking blonde. I thought I told you not to talk to her, Izuku-in, Toga complained right off the bat, as she noticed the smile Midoriya had given Camie, which just got a small chuckle out of him. Yeah, but remember that I told you that we're both obligated to get along with everyone? You just have to put up with her, and also you have to try not to attack her again. I didn't even talk to her anyways, I just smiled. He let out a soft laugh, stepping over to the massive fridge the kitchen had, and taking out a small carton of milk, swiftly ripping it open, and taking a sip. And I mean you're feisty, that's hot, but you gotta tone it down a bit, alright? Izuku looked over at the girl, who blushed and giggled at the sudden compliment before nodding her head excitedly. I'll do just that then, anything for my Izuku-in. Himiko giggled again, as she playfully swung her legs over the counter still, bouncing excitedly in place. Meanwhile Izuku was just surprised that Tenya hadn't told her to get off the countertop yet, but he quickly realized that he just wasn't downstairs yet. Alright, that's good, good girl. Also, why are you still in your pajamas while everyone else is dressed? I mean, are you only wearing a sweatshirt because I can't see anything else? Midoriya asked, and smiled at Toga, who hopped off the counter and stepped closer to the taller teen, poking his nose playfully. I'm still in these mostly because I'm lazy, and if I'm wearing anything else under this, well, I guess you'll never find out, Izuku-in. I'll see you in class. The small blonde flashed the teen a feigned smile, running off to get ready shortly after. Izuku just shook his head at the girl's antics before finishing off his small milk carton, tossing it into the trash before walking over to the main lounge to pass the time with his classmates, but almost as if God was throwing him a massive middle finger. He just had to bump into Bakugo, the one motherfucker he just did not like at all. Oh Deku, the fuck are you doing, you useless prick? You want me to beat the shit out of you? Katsuki immediately yelled out, pushing Izuku back violently, just because he accidentally bumped into him. Good to see you too, boom bitch. I just bumped into you, dumbass. If I wanted you to beat the shit out of me I would have punched you. He spoke back with a smile, just walking past the explosive teen again. Just shut the fuck up, and stay out of my way if you don't want me to kill you, Deku. Bakugo snarled, his palms crackling with small explosions, as he made his way out of the building, even if class wasn't supposed to start for another 20 minutes. That was actually one of the tamest interactions we've had, well as tame as they can get when the main asshole resembles a fucking chihuahua with anger issues. What a dick, Izuku thought with a chuckle, still just moving forward to where a few of his classmates were on the couch, plopping down onto the soft surface with a soft groan. He mostly kept quiet as he settled into his spot and listened to the conversation Kaminari, Uraraka, Hagakure, and Azuri were having, watching the three happily interact with a small grin. For some reason, Izuku just couldn't help but be glad that he was in a class with these people. The only asshole was Bakugo, and maybe Todoroki. He just couldn't be happier about it, really. Oh, Midoriya-kun? Why does Bakugo call you Deku? Everyone overheard his yelling and insults, but I don't get it. Isn't Deku just an encouraging nickname like Dekairu? You know, with an I can do it vibe. It's cute, Uraraka innocently said with a smile, as she suddenly turned to face Izuku, leaving the other two girls and Kaminari to chat amongst themselves. Izuku just smiled back at the brown-haired girl and shook his head slightly, letting out a soft sigh. Trust me, Uraraka-chan, that nickname is anything but encouraging. I mean, it's Bakugo. You don't know him, but that douche has got major anger issues. I honestly don't even know why he hates me so much. It's been like this since I got my quirk, and we used to be friends before that. I'm kinda just starting to think that asshole was a superiority complex or something, but I like that new meaning to the name actually. It's nice. He chuckled and shrugged his shoulders slightly, while Ochako recoiled slightly after learning the real meaning of the nickname, but then smiled at Izuku accepting her meaning of the name. Oh, that's terrible, but you're right. He doesn't exactly seem nice at all. And would you mind if I called you Deku then? Since you like the meaning because it's different, and all. I mean, if not then it's okay. Ochako asked both excitedly and nervously, cutely tilting her head slightly as she asked the question. Not at all actually. You can call me whatever you like really, but if you'll call me Deku, then I'm just calling you Ochako. It's a lot better to say, and also, should we get going to the classroom? We've got like 10 minutes left, and Ida is already making people get to class honestly. I like the guy, but he could be less intense. He chuckled and shrugged, scratching over the back of his head, as Uraraka gave a small smile before the two made their way to class. As they arrived to have homeroom with Aizawa, Izuku quickly realized that he should have been a lot less excited for the lessons. Sure, the teachers were gonna all be heroes, but they were still only gonna be teaching the same old subjects that he went through in middle school. He really just hoped that either his classmates or the teachers themselves would make the lessons a little more fun, but, as always, luck wasn't on Midoriya's side, as most of their day consisted of long and tiring lessons. Cementos and Ectoplasm did a good job teaching their respective subjects and acted like real teachers, while during English, Present Mike made the lessons a bit more intense than they needed to be. Midnight was a surprise for all the students, as she actually seemed like the most professional of all the other teachers, except for her sudden teasing comments which came every few minutes. After that came lunch, which was perfectly cooked and incredibly good, and finally it was time for the class everyone was looking for, Foundational Hero Studies. The class was a complete mystery, as the only clue students had about it was that it was more related to hero work, but the teacher was unknown, and the actual teachings were unknown as well. Soon, afternoon came, and so did their first heroics class, which started with a massive reveal as to who the teacher was. I am, the mysterious teacher started, shoving the door open quickly after. Coming through the door like a normal person, the man yelled, now revealing himself as All Might, the #1 hero. The class immediately burst into chaos, with people equally surprised, excited, and some even a tiny bit scared at being taught by the behemoth of a man. All Might is here, and he's a teacher? Kirishima shouted excitedly. Look at his costume, Jero. Isn't it from the Silver Age? Tsuyu stared excitedly, as well, a small smile present on her usually stoic face. OMG, yeah? It's so retro. It's sick, Camie spoke with a smile, as she jumped a little in place. Izuku just watched the scene with a bright smile, as well. Even if he wasn't as much of a hero nerd as he used to be, he was still ecstatic about being taught by All Might, who was his idol. He had only met him once before, and got his autograph, but just that. Now he was going to be learning under him. I am your Foundational Hero Studies teacher, All Might. The large man posed and flexed his muscles with a hearty laugh. In this class, we'll be shaping you up to be the best pro heroes you can become, doing so through various trials, such as today's combat training. All Might flexed once again, as he showed them a small paper with the word battle on it. At the big news, Bakugo suddenly grinned in excitement, and looked over at Izuku, eager to fight anyone really, but mostly the green-haired teen. On the other hand, Midoriya simply smiled, and stood up from his desk, followed by Toga, as always, who was bouncing with excitement, as well. But hold on, students, to go with that, we have your hero costumes. At the announcement, the wall beside the hulking man began to shift before revealing several slots with cases in them, each of them having a student's name on it. Everyone immediately rushed to pick their cases up, including Izuku. Your costumes have been created in accordance with the quirk registry, and the forms you all filled out before school started, along with every detail and accessory you wanted. The class quickly cheered in excitement again at the news, but in reality, no one was as excited as Izuku. He had done the entrance exam barehanded, almost quirkless, and now he would have the advantage. He'd be able to show off, as he knew that in the silver case were 2 guns and his baton. He was gonna absolutely destroy the competition with those. The competition being his unsuspecting classmates, of course. Go get changed, and meet me at training ground beta. Get going, All Might declared with his signature smile before dashing out of the room, and towards the meeting spot. The students simply followed suit, and ran to the changing rooms. Once about 10 more minutes had passed, everyone was done changing, and walked through the tunnels leading to ground beta, with the boys and girls obviously separated by the changing rooms' different access and exit points. They say clothes make a person. Ladies and gentlemen, be fully aware now you truly look, and are heroes. All Might spoke with another laugh, as he watched the students step out of the shadows, smiling at their choices in costumes, well, except for a few that were a bit too much. Most of them, though, were very decent looking. Mina stood out immediately due to her usual looks, that being the pink skin and hair, but that paired with her skin-tight bodysuit just drew even more attention to her. On top of the bodysuit was a small jacket with white fur on the collar, as well as she wore a white mask to cover her face. The combination of colors for the camouflage pattern she had chosen seemed to have been picked to complement her own skin tone more than anything else. Aoyama was another surprising costume, as he basically wore a knight's armor, while Tenya wore a costume slightly similar to it. The speedster's costume looked more like a modern knight, with white plating covering him along with a helmet. Hagakure was pretty much naked except for some gloves and boots, which was a very simplistic costume. Kaminari wore an open collar jacket with white stripes that ended in lightning bolts, along with matching pants, and a white t-shirt underneath. He also wore a headset with a small antenna sticking out of it, probably useful for communicating, and because of his electricity quirk, it worked perfectly. Asuna's costume simply made her look even more frog-like than usual, as she wore a skin-tight bodysuit, just like Mina, with the exception of it being green with black and yellow stripes along her body. Izuku had to admit that she did look kind of cute like that. Then came Siro, who wore a black short-sleeved bodysuit with a large white design on his stomach, as well as orange boots, shoulder guards, and some orange lines on his sleeves, as well. Also, a helmet that wasn't all that impressive, as it mimicked a simple motorcycle one. From there on, most of the costumes were pretty tame and normal, except for another few classmates which were wearing very surprising outfits. Or more so, very eye-catching outfits. First was Bakugo's costume, which consisted of 2 large grenade-shaped gauntlets on his arms, along with 2 long pins which were probably what made the 2 items useful. It was a bit much to say the least. The rest of his outfit wasn't as impressive as his grenade gauntlets though, as it was just a combination of black, green, and orange here and there, along with an orange X crossing over his chest. He also wore a green belt with spherical grenades attached to it, with a metal neck protector, and knee pads, as well as large boots, and a weird mask which flared out the back of his head. It was slightly intimidating. After the explosive teen's catchy outfit, Momo's caught Izuku's attention, mainly because it didn't cover much at all. It pretty much caught everyone's attention, as all his male classmates were practically drooling at it. It was simply a red leotard which exposed a lot of her front and bust, which had a high collar also, and a yellow belt across her upper chest, which seemed to be the one thing containing the girl's more plump features to just pop out. She wore another utility belt around her hips, and had an encyclopedia, as well, which the green-haired teen just assumed was for her quirk, as well. Toga's was a bit different. She wore a black bodysuit with white outlines along her legs and sleeves, as well as a black flowy skirt which was pretty much there just to cover her toned rear. That, and it was probably just aesthetic. She also wore a dark gray jacket, and a face mask, which had some design on it that resembled sharp teeth. None of those parts were the most surprising of her outfit. No, as she had a small machine with tubes strapped to her back, as well as syringes and knives strapped to her thighs and hips. Her hair was also in the trademark buns. Izuku actually was excited to see her in action, or more specifically her quirk in action. He knew she had to have someone's blood for it to work, hence all the syringes and knives, but he was still looking forward to it. It was a very strong quirk. Uraraka's outfit wasn't too much either, as the only part which really surprised Midoriya was the fact that it was skin tight. That really surprised him, along with her figure, which was very curvy. He just didn't expect an innocent and bubbly girl like her to go for such an attractive costume. It was mostly black with some white/pink tints on it, as well as it had 2 white round devices on her wrists, and large white boots on, as well. To top it all off, she carried a helmet under one of her arms which had a see-through visor, the colors obviously matching the rest of her outfit. She looked good. Finally came Camie's outfit. It was probably the most simple out of the whole class, but she looked damn good in it. She stood there under the sun in a black catsuit, which stuck very closely to her body. Along with that she wore knee-high white boots, and a protective collar around her neck. And even after looking at all the different outfits and accessories his classmates had, Izuku still just thought he had the best suit out of all of them. Even if it was highly egotistical to say, it wasn't anything crazy, but it did its job, and it was exactly like he wanted it. Midoriya wore a dark forest green and black full-body tactical suit, with the majority of it being green-colored while the black worked as some highlights all over his body. Along with the base suit, Izuku also wore several holsters around his body, the first one being on his back to carry his baton, another 2 on his upper thighs which held 2 handguns, and 1 more on his right ankle, which housed a few knives. He also had some small pouches strapped around his hips, carrying smoke grenades, EMPs, and extra rubber bullets. The one thing that disappointed him was that he had no mask, even if he had asked for one. He also had some extra padding on his knees and shoulders. Note, Deadpool's suit is green. I might change it to the original red though later on. Again, I must reiterate that you all really do look like pros already. Even if you're far from it still, All Might spoke up once more, giving them all a thumbs up before focusing on Izuku, who was checking out his pistols, and the amount of bullets they had, which was exactly 16 each. More than enough, or so he hoped. Ahem, young Midoriya? Those guns are non-lethal, correct? Their teacher spoke up with a raised eyebrow, clearly slightly worried about the handguns. Oh yeah, these guns are definitely lethal, sir, Midoriya answered with a bright smile, and nodded, placing the handguns back into his holsters before bringing his arms up, and flexing his biceps, giving them each a kiss. He chuckled, but no, the bullets are made of rubber, so no need to worry. The majority of the class just laughed at his dumb joke, including All Might, while a few like Bakugo and Todoroki either remained stoic or just got even angrier than they were. The girls though, more specifically Toga, Camie, and surprisingly Ochako were very clearly just checking him out. The suit was pretty form-fitting anyways. Thank you for clarifying, my boy. Now you zygotes, shall we begin with the combat training? Sensei, this is very similar to the battle center from the entrance exam. Will we be conducting urban battles again? Asked Tenya, chopping his arms in the air robotically, as always. It was even funnier to watch now with his full body armor. He really did look exactly like a robot. No, we're taking you all a step further into more realistic battle scenarios. This class we will conduct indoor battle training. Villains' battles are usually seen more outdoors, but the truly smart and sickening villains lurk indoors to get an advantage. Most fights between hero and villain happen in the shadows, which is what we'll replicate today. You all will be separated into heroes and villains for 2-on-2 team battles. This will be with the exception of one team, who will have 3 members instead of 2. It will still be a fair battle, so don't worry about someone having an advantage. Surprise immediately washed over the class, everyone quickly thinking that this was too advanced for them. Siro spoke up shortly after. Isn't this too advanced, sensei? Without basic training? Oh, this is a battle in which you will all get to understand those basics. However, this time there will be no robots to destroy. This will require more than what you all used during the entrance exam. So what exactly determines victory here? Momo quickly asked, as she raised her hand. Can I just blow up the building and be done with it? Bakugo growled out. There isn't a punishment like with Aizawa-sensei, right? Ochako spoke up nervously. Like, what about the teams? How are we gonna, decide on that? Camie asked, bouncing on the balls of her feet. Isn't my cape fabulous? Aoyama added on with a dazzling smile, and pose, sparkling just, as always. Okay, by order of questions, allow me to explain. No, definitely no punishment. Once again allow me to explain, and yes, your cape is quite impressive, All Might proclaimed, pulling out a small notebook from behind him. Now, today's task. The situation is that the villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes have to go in and dispose of it. The heroes will have a limited amount of time to either capture the villains or secure the weapon in order to win. As for securing, you merely need to be able to touch it for 3 seconds. The villains, in order to win, must either secure the weapon until time runs out or capture their opponents. Is he really reading out of a script? Isn't he the #1 hero? Like super badass, and all? Toga asked no one in particular with a giggle. At that, a small blush, an embarrassed expression could be seen on their teacher's face, though he quickly shook it off and cleared his throat to speak again. teams, and opponents will be determined by drawing lots. What? Is that truly the best way to go about this, sensei? Tenya asked, slightly shocked at the way the lesson was going so far. It makes sense if you think about it, you know? Considering that pros have to team up often on the field even if they don't know each other at all. You gotta be able to adapt and work on the spot, Izuku pointed out, looking over at Ida, and shrugging his shoulders lightly. I understand. Excuse my interruption, sensei. Tenya bowed immediately. No worries, young Ida. Now, let's get on with the teams. Soon, after about 5 minutes, the teams were formed. Team A, Izuku Midoriya Ochako Uraraka. Team B, Tsuyu Ajiri Camie Utsushimi. Team C, Eijiro Kurishima Rikido Sato. Team D, Toru Hagakure Toga Himiko. Team E, Katsuki Bakugo, Momo Yayorozu Mina Ishido. Team F, Kyokujiro Shoto Todoroki. Team G, Koji Koda Tenya Ida. Team H, Mashireo Ojiro Mizo Shoji. Team I, Denki Kaminari Hantasiro. Team J, Yuga Aoyama Fumikage Tokoemi. Alright, now that we have the teams ready, let's see what the first match will be. All Might spoke, as he pulled out 2 lottery boxes out of seemingly nowhere. One of the boxes labeled as heroes, and the other as villains. First up we have Team A, as heroes against Team E, as villains. Now, since time has 3 people, you all have 3 minutes to prepare instead of 5, the number 1 hero explained, turning to look over at the building used for the trial. Now, the villains will go into the building, and plan out their defenses. After that, the hero team will enter, and the exercise will begin. Everyone else will be in the monitoring room watching how you do. There are also plenty of surveillance cameras all over the building to not miss even a second of the action. Also, as this is a practical experience, don't hold back. I'll stop you if anything goes too far, but I'm sure it won't. Now get going, teams, All Might called out, turning on his heel to lead the rest of the class to the surveillance room while the 2 teams made their way to their positions. Though before Team E went into the building, Bakugo took the time to look over at Izuku and crackle his palms intimidatingly. Or at least it would have been intimidating if the green-haired boy was scared of sparklers. Quickly after, Bakugo's team was inside the building preparing their defenses for Izuku and Ochako. More accurately, only Ishido and Momo were working on preparing the room for the 2, while Katsuki stood at the door, raring to go, as small explosions were being set off by his hands. Bakugo-san, can you come help us move the bomb, or do we have to do everything ourselves? Momo suddenly spoke up against the explosive team, who really was being useless. You and Raccoon Eyes can move it, Ponytail. I'm just gonna blow Deku and that round-faced bitch the fuck up, Katsuki answered harshly, without even turning to look at his teammates. Momo simply sighed in response while helping Mina move the bomb. God, what an asshole. I mean, seriously, Raccoon Eyes? What kind of nickname is that? The pink-skinned girl said, setting the bomb up along with the other girl before moving over to where Bakugo stood. Alright, the room is reinforced, so let's plan this out. First, we'll leave one person here to protect the bomb, and the other 2 will go fight Midoriya and Uraraka to either beat them or just stall for time. So, thinking about our quirks, I believe it's best if I stay while you 2 go, as you have a lot more mobility than I do. I'll just continue setting traps for now. Momo took control of the situation, a small smile forming on her face, as Bakugo just grunted in response, and Mina gave her a grin and a thumbs up. Come on, Raccoon Eyes, let's go kill those fuckers. Katsuki spoke up, as he quickly started to walk away from the room, with an annoyed Mina following behind. It was a good plan for them, really. They had reinforced the walls with spare crates, and Momo had set up small traps with flashbangs and concussion grenades around and outside the room. It would be a hard match for the heroes, especially with their advantage of setting up on the top floor. They would be impossible to approach, or maybe not. Do we have a plan, Deku-kun? Uraraka asked, as she and Izuku stood right outside the building, with the boy simply doing some light stretches. Definitely, he quickly answered back. So, what is it? She leaned in closer to him. Well, I know for a fact that the asshole is gonna come straight for me, and there's 3 of them while we're only 2. We're at a clear disadvantage, but I think I know exactly what they're gonna do. Ishido has the most mobility out of all of them with her acid, while Bakugo has power. Momo, while her quirk is strong as shit, doesn't have any physical enhancements, so she'll probably stay with the bomb and guard it. Midoriya spoke softly, reaching into one of the pouches on his hip, and taking out 2 smoke grenades, and 2 EMPs, as well. I'm just speculating here, but that would mean that Bakugo and Ishido will be coming straight for us, so I'll go alone. I'll go through the main entrance while you can go in through one of the windows, then I'll just be as loud as possible to draw both of them towards me while you find the room where the bomb is. Toss these bad boys in there, and either capture Momo or touch the bomb for 3 seconds. I think that would work. And if not, just improvise. I trust you on this. He handed the grenades to Ochako, who quickly took them, and nodded at him. What about booby traps? What should I do if I run into any of those? The girl asked nervously. Ha, you said booby? Izuku quickly laughed out loud, holding his stomach, as he did so before relaxing a couple of moments after. Sorry, that was just funny, but you have those EMP grenades for that. Throw them where you see or think traps might be, and it'll set them off or disable them. He reassured Uraraka, bringing his fist up with a smile. Come on, let's beat their asses. Ochako smiled, and happily bumped her first against his, just as the 3 minutes of prep time were up, immediately separating herself from Izuku, as he sighed deeply before running into the building, holding one of his guns. Maximum effort. Midoriya nodded, shooting off 3 rubber bullets in random directions, each with a loud bang, and just as he did so, he heard explosions coming from directly above him, as he approached the stairs, before checking behind himself, only to find Ishido quickly skating towards him with her acid. Ooh, my common sense is tingling, and it's telling me to get the fuck out of here, Izuku called out with a small grin, as he heard the explosions quickly getting closer, which just meant Bakugo took the bait, as well, and was rushing downstairs to try and kill him. Meanwhile, as the green-haired teen found himself in a tight spot, Ochako had managed to float herself up onto the second floor, silently entering the building before sneaking around the floor looking for the bomb, quickly starting to move on up the building while repeating the process. As well, she had managed to completely avoid Bakugo as he was rushing down the stairs, and sighed in relief once she did so, but she couldn't help but be worried about her friend. In the monitoring room, damn, Midoriya is dead. Just look at that. He's got Mina coming in from one side, and Bakugo from the other. There's no way Uraraka can handle all 3 of them after that, Kirishima said, his voice laced with disappointment, as he was hoping for a good first match, and apparently it was gonna just be a slaughter in his eyes. You're totes wrong, bro. I mean, Aizababy is skilled as fuck, Almeo. You all saw that with Aizawa's test yesterday, Camie pointed out with a small smile, keeping her eyes locked onto the screens which displayed the scene. Maybe, but he's up against a chick who can toss acid, and a dude who makes explosions with his hands. He just has a healing quirk. That doesn't do much here, and I don't think those guns he has will help either, the red-haired boy immediately reiterated, furrowing his eyebrows. I do not believe that to be the case, Kirishima-san. If he has a healing quirk, that means he can probably take more hits, and stall for time that way, fighting while continuously healing his wounds. That would give Uraraka-san more than enough time to attack Yaoyorozu, and attempt to win, though if she does fail, then the hero team will indeed lose. Ida spoke up in defense of the green-haired boy, and the gravity girl, only to take a more depressing turn towards the end. No, wait, what is Midoriya-kun doing? Hagakure suddenly jumped into the discussion, and interrupted, her eyes widening in surprise with her classmates mimicking her reaction. Himiko being Himiko just giggled loudly, and shuffled closer to the screen, keeping her eyes on Izuku. Okay, what do I do here? I can either burn myself with acid or let Bakugo blow me up, though I've got these sweet-ass boots and knee pads for something, Izuku thought, as his grin only widened, turning away from the stairs and running towards Ishido, as well, facing her head-on, as he grabbed onto his baton and threw it at the girl. Mina's eyes widened at his action, and quickly ducked out of the way before standing up once more, confident that Midoriya was screwed. That was not the case at all. Izuku simply continued to run up to Mina, sliding through her acid, as well with his metal-heeled boots. He managed to get to the pink-skinned girl just as she stood up, and looked over at him, immediately kneeing her in the stomach, and continuing on forward before letting himself fall to the floor, as well, the momentum keeping him moving through the acid, as he slid on his knees. This is gonna hurt like a bitch. Sorry, Pinky. He aimed his gun, quickly firing 2 shots, one to each of Ishido's calves, which managed to trip her off her feet momentarily, as she yelped out in pain. Oh, what the hell, Midoriya? It's combat training, girl. You should have expected that. Izuku laughed, sliding off the trail of acid Ishido had made, and picking up his baton off the floor, once again strapping it onto his back before running off through the hall, looking for a spot to temporarily hide in. He sprinted through the long halls while taking random turns until he spotted a large room filled with crates, as well, quickly stepping inside, and using the boxes as cover so he wasn't seen. Once hidden, he immediately began looking through his poachers for a smoke bomb, as he had a perfect plan. Actually, not a perfect one. An incredibly stupid one which would put the other team, and him included, at a disadvantage, but it would level the playing ground. Though, as he was pulling out the grenades, he couldn't help but chuckle softly at the yelling coming from down the hall. What the fuck do you mean? He got away, raccoon eyes. Are you really this fucking useless? That fucker only heals. You have acid. Fuck. Bakugo yelled out, as he helped Mina up and off the floor, even if he was constantly insulting her. Just follow my lead, but don't get in my way. We're killing this fucker, he growled out, as Ishido nervously nodded, and followed behind. Wait, Bakugo, we only saw Midoriya. Where's Uraraka? She asked, rubbing the spots in her calves where the rubber bullets had hit. I don't give a shit where Round Face is. Deku is hiding somewhere here, and we're gonna destroy him. Ponytail can handle her. She doesn't seem like much anyways. Now shut up, and help me look for this sack of shit. He quickly shot back at her, shutting the pink-skinned girl up completely, not because she was intimidated, but more so because she didn't want to keep angering the already furious teen. Where the fuck are you, Deku? You think you're so much better than me, huh? Why don't you come and fight me then, fucker? Katsuki yelled out again, just as he was passing by the room Izuku was hidden in. Okay, shit Ochako, how are you doing? Find the bomb yet? Midoriya quietly asked, turning on the small communication device in his ear. Deku, thank God you're okay. I heard a ton of explosions, and just got scared. I did find the bomb, but I can't do anything here just yet. I disabled the traps Momo laid out with the grenades you gave me, but I don't want to risk getting caught just yet. Should I just go for it? The bubbly girl asked with a both concerned and nervous tone. You know what? Wait a bit for me. If I'm caught, just rush in and beat Momo. I know you can do it. If not though, wait for my signal, okay? You're about to hear a shit ton more explosions. He sighed out, cracking his knuckles softly before running out of the room, and looking over at Katsuki's and Mina's backs, whistling loudly. Sorry for running out on you guys like that. I kinda just didn't want to have to deal with fighting the living embodiment of a 15-ton pile of shit. I don't mean you, by the way, Ashido. You seem cool. Izuku spoke with a small grin, keeping one of his hands hidden, as he had the smoke bombs in it, while in his other hand he held the large baton. Mina just let out a soft giggle, and shook her head at Midoriya, forming small pools of acid in her hands, while Bakugo just yelled, and launched himself towards him with his explosions. Fuck you, DKU. And, as soon as those words left Katsuki's mouth, Izuku dropped the smoke bomb he held in his hand, filling the corridor, and basically blinding all of them. He simply moved closer to the wall, and kept quiet to avoid Bakugo, who was already freaking out even more, and throwing random explosions. Wait, stop, Bakugo. He can hear you. Stay, Mina shouted, but was suddenly cut off completely, as Izuku snuck up behind her, placing her in a choke hold until she passed out before wrapping the capture tape around her wrists, gently patting her cheek. Sweet dreams, baby. Villain Mina Ashido has been captured. It's now a 2v2 fight, All Might announced almost instantly, as Izuku took the girl down. Apparently the cameras had thermal vision or some shit. Neat. Back in the monitoring room. What? Midoriya is like a ninja. Did you see that chokehold? He's so manly. He'll definitely win this thing. Kirishima shouted out, completely changing his view on the match, as he was now thoroughly entertained. Fuck, that was hot. Toga spoke up then, making the room go completely silent, and just shrugging at them. What? Nah, Shorty is right. That was totes hot, like damn. He's too hot. Izubaby is insane. Camie shared Toga's opinion, letting out a small giggle. Izuku was just about to sneak up on Bakugo, as the blonde released a massive explosion to clear the remainder of the smoke, accidentally hitting him, as he did so. Ha! I found you, you little shit! Now stay still like the useless Deku you are, and die! Katsuki yelled out, quickly chasing after Midoriya, who had quickly gotten up from the ground, and recovered from the shock of the blast. There are 3 minutes left in the trial. If the heroes do not act now, the villain team will win. Fuck, seriously? Okay, shit. Ochako, get ready for my signal. Izuku called out to the communication device, receiving a quick comment from Uraraka telling him she was ready. Alright, buddy, let's keep things civil, okay? No blowing up limbs, and that's it, the green-haired boy said, quickly grabbing one of the small knives off the holster in his ankle, and flicking it at Katsuki, somehow managing to graze his right arm, as the explosive teen just about dodged. You think a knife will stop me, Deku? Bakugo rushed forward again, aiming a left hook at Izuku's head, which was easily dodged by the boy, as he retaliated, finally making use of his baton, as he struck Katsuki across the back with it before quickly unholstering one of his guns and shooting multiple bullets, managing to break one of his grenade gauntlet. What the fuck? Did he just read me? Bakugo immediately thought, as he recovered from the hits, growling, as he noticed his broken gauntlet before looking at the other with a smirk, putting some distance between him, and grabbing a hold of the large pin sticking out of the large grenade. You know how these work, don't you, Deku? That's why you fucking broke one of them. But now I'm gonna break you, you fuck. The angered blonde smirked evilly, preparing himself to pull the pin, but soon All Might's voice rang out from the speakers. Do not pull that pin, young Bakugo. You could kill him. He'll be fine, as long as he dodges. He isn't that much of a fucking dumbass. Katsuki shouted back at the cameras so his words could be heard from the monitoring room. Don't underestimate me, boom bitch. Izuku smirked, attempting to catch Bakugo off guard, as he quickly aimed his gun at the gauntlet and shot at it repeatedly once again, just about managing to crack it before the blonde fired off the explosion, It didn't work out like he hoped though due to the broken gauntlet, which ended in both of them being engulfed in the explosion almost immediately, with most of the blasts still going towards Midoriya, more specifically towards Midoriya, and Mina, who was passed out on the floor right behind him. "Ochako, go now, run in, and get the bomb!" Izuku managed to yell out into the communication device, just as he was cut off by the blast, throwing himself on top of Ashido to protect her from the explosion, taking all of the damage. Thankfully, Uraraka did just as Izuku said, and rushed into the room just as the massive explosion shook the entire building, knocking Momo off balance completely, as she was already exhausted after overusing her quirk, while Ochako managed to stumble forward and onto the bomb, pressing herself against it, and effectively ending the match. "Deku-kun, are you okay?" Uraraka immediately yelled out into her calm, running out of the room, and heading down to where the explosion took place, worried about her friend, and other classmates as well. "What was that explosion? Is everyone okay?" Momo shouted, as well, slowly following after Uraraka, as the fatigue she felt was still strong enough to slow her down. Her quirk had some big drawbacks apparently. The hero team wins. One of you is going to get a recovery girl. Everyone else stays put, All Might shouted into the microphone, and at his class, with concern evident in his voice, as he rushed into the building in a split second while Ida had run off to get the man's request done. Thankfully, All Might had quickly managed to find Bakugo and the other two students, who were still engulfed in smoke. The number one hero immediately checked Katsuki's pulse and physical state, sighing softly in relief, as the boy was mostly okay, aside from his arm which was burnt, and a shade of red. He got off with almost no damage whatsoever anyways. Then he moved towards the other two students, and clapped his hands firmly, clearing the smoke to get a better look at the two, gasping in shock at what he saw, which said a lot about the situation. He was the strongest man in Japan, and arguably the world, yet he was still somehow shocked about a combat simulation in a school. It was completely justified though. Mina was perfectly fine for the most part, with only a few small burn marks on her body, and some tears in her costume, but Izuku wasn't doing so well. The green-haired boy had been blasted off from on top of Ashido's body, sending him flying against the wall where he now sat, resting against the rough surface. The top half of his costume was almost completely burned off, with just a small piece of the fabric still clinging onto his left side. His right side, which took the majority of the damage, was badly burnt, with scorch marks that looked unlike any burn the top hero had ever seen before. That wasn't even the worst part though, as his right arm was completely bloodied, and hanging limply off his shoulder, with a large chunk of the limb gone. Midoriya had sustained what looked like 4th-degree burns all through his right side, and had sacrificed his arm to protect Mina. Even if the arm wasn't gone or anything, there was still a massive wound on it. All Might knew not a lot of people would risk their own well-being to protect someone else, but Izuku had just done it without a second thought, which gave the massive man a small idea as to who his successor could be in the future. It wasn't the time to think about that though. "Young Midoriya, can you hear me?" The teacher called out in a small panic, gently shaking the boy's unharmed shoulder. Just as he did so, Uraraka and Momo had reached the floor, and ran over to the scene, their eyes widening in horror. "Oh my god!" Deku Ochako whimpered out softly, tears rapidly forming, and rolling down her cheeks. Momo instantly brought a hand up to cover her mouth, as she almost trembled in shock. "Is he alive?" she quietly asked, looking over at All Might who seemed just as worried. Back again in the monitoring room. The room was completely quiet at the scene in front of them. Every single one of the monitors were displaying the 3 passed-out students, with a few of the screens showing Bakugo, a few others showing Mina, but most of them only showed Izuku, and the terrible state he was in. "What the hell, is he not dead right? He can't be. This is just a fucking combat exercise." Kaminari was the first to speak up, pointing at the screens with a shaky hand. "I hope he's alive, Jero, but even if his arm isn't okay, I know he has a regenerative quirk, but is it even that strong?" Ajui finished off with a sad ribbit, sitting down on one of the chairs close to her. "That looks impossible to heal." Frankly, Todoroki surprisingly spoke up, his usually stoic expression replaced with a slightly more nervous-looking one. "Come on, guys, just don't worry. I'm sure Recovery Girl will help him. He'll be okay." Kirishima attempted to ease everyone's nerves, glancing over at both Yoga and Camie, who he knew were probably closest to Midoriya. The two blondes didn't say anything at all. Camie only stumbled back against the wall, and brought her hands up to cover her mouth, her usual cheerful attitude completely gone, as she began to quietly cry, though still keeping her eyes locked onto the monitor. Toga simply ran out of the room with tears welling up in her eyes, as well, rushing towards the scene. The broken-down hallway was almost completely enveloped in silence aside from Uraraka soft crying, and Momo attempting to comfort the girl. Both Mina and Bakugo were still completely passed out on the ground, while All Might hung his head low, disappointed in himself at letting something so terrible happen to a student. The number one hero was just about to get up and carry the boy away from the destruction until he heard extremely quick footsteps approaching him. Immediately standing straight and looking over at the source of the sound, letting out a small sigh at the arrival of Recovery Girl, Tenya, and Toga, who he just assumed had abandoned the monitoring room. I can't believe I let this happen. My first class teaching, and a student ended up like this, All Might said softly, and with sullen eyes, looking over at Recovery Girl, who quickly approached Izuku before flinching back in surprise. Ah, burnt flesh smells like victory. The green-haired boy groaned out all of a sudden, using his good arm to grab at his opposite shoulder. Damn, this hurts like a bitch. Yup, definitely hurts. I fucking told him not to blow up limbs, and he decides to do it anyways, what a dick. Izuku added on with a slightly louder groan, lifting his head up from staring at the wounds to look at everyone who was currently surrounding him, giving them a pained and bloody smile. What? You're okay? Toga and Uraraka yelled out in sync, staring at the boy with wide eyes, which were at the same time filled with relief. Oh yeah, I don't think I could die from something done to my arm. I'm already healing actually, but that doesn't take away the fact that this shit hurts like a motherfucker, just holy shit. Izuku winced in pain, as he tried to move off the floor and wall, attempting to do so for a few moments before Himiko and All Might stepped up to him and held him down gently. Young Midoriya, I'd advise that you keep still for a few moments if you're not exactly in perfect condition. All Might stuttered out, just as shocked as everyone else that the boy who almost had his arm completely blown up was okay. Listen to your teacher, Sonny. Now, here I can tell that your quirk will heal you completely, but this will help you recover quicker. Recovery Girl stepped in, giving Izuku a kiss on the forehead before stuffing his mouth with a few gummies, which he happily ate thinking they were just candy. They were actually medicine to dull the pain and make the patient sleep. Thanks, Grandma. Wait, what I just ate was candy, right? Midoriya asked out with half-lidded eyes, the gummies already starting to affect him. As sure it was, Deku-kun. I'm really glad you're okay. Uraraka sighed softly, looking down at the teen's tired face with a slightly more relaxed expression. You can't scare us like that again, Izuku. The entire class was worried. I was worried, Toga added onto Ochako's words, flicking his sweaty forehead harshly with her fingers. Oh, okay, I get it, damn babe. Just relax, you know? Take a chill pill or something. Izuku drowsily chuckled, slowly starting to get up and off the floor with both Recovery Girls and All Might's health, both looking relieved to see that the boy's arm was already almost back to normal due to the combination of healing quirks. Well, come on, you four. Help Recovery Girl take your classmates to the nurse's office. They'll all be okay if the worst of the injuries have already passed. The man spoke, lifting Izuku up into his arms, as Uraraka made Bakugo and Ishido weightless, lifting them up along with Tenya to do exactly as their teacher had said, following close behind the two older individuals as they made their way to U.A's main building. Where are we even going, man? I swear to God, if it's not Disneyland or to visit my mom, I will punch someone. Izuku rambled on, the drugs clearly in full effect, as he laid limply in his teacher's arms, looking around at his surroundings before his eyes landed on Momo. Hey, ponytail girl, what was your quirk again? Dressing impracticality? Ha, that's hilarious. He just kept on speaking, now completely distracted from his arm and hurt body. Toga only giggled softly at his antics while Uraraka smiled, same as Momo, who had a smaller and slightly annoyed smile at the sudden comment. I'm really glad Deku-kun's okay, but what's gonna happen to Bakugo? I mean, he did all this, isn't that like attempted murder? Ochako wondered out loud, looking over at Tenaya and Momo. The onyx-eyed girl just gave a small sigh and shook her head, while Ida went on to give an extremely detailed explanation on what could happen to the explosive teen due to his actions. Tenya's rambling lasted the entire way over to the nurse's office, and back to the monitoring room, with the brunette and black-haired girl only pretending to still be listening while Toga's mind was elsewhere. She was still just worried about Izuku, even if he was fine at the moment. She was just certain that he was not gonna be very happy about missing the rest of their classes for the day. That, and she didn't want him to have to deal with Bakugo again. Still though, for the time being mostly everything ended up well. The only issues left had yet to come anyways. Izuku was still very much drugged by whatever Recovery Girl had given him, but it was thankfully quickly fading away. He had thought they were gummies, but it was a clear lie after he had started seeing the people around him all just slowly start flying around the place. It made no sense, which was the only reason as to how he realized he just wasn't thinking sanely. Either that or he was just going insane. Though, even if he was drugged, he was doing a whole lot better. His arm had fully healed, and felt better than ever, which was incredible, and he had even won the match. He and Uraraka had been up against 3 very strong opponents, and kicked in their teeth completely. He was extremely proud of himself, and the Gravity Girl. Especially Ochako, since she managed to win it for both of them. As he quickly began to feel more and more like himself though, he immediately sat up on the bed he was laying down on, and checked the clock. About 20 minutes had passed since he was completely out of it, meaning he had missed 2 of the battle trials, which he was really interested in seeing. He really just hoped that there'd be a chance to watch them over later. Fuck, maybe I should have just played it safe. I could have just thrown all my knives at him, and then kicked his shit with the baton. Izuku spoke out loud, slowly shaking his head at himself before letting out a sigh, throwing himself back down against the mattress, only to instantly sit up once again with wide eyes. Wait, my things are okay, right? That was all so expensive. I can't make my mom pay for that. God, fuck that Pomeranian-looking asshole. What a piece of shit, he groaned softly, swinging his legs over the edge of the bed before hopping off, stretching his body to get rid of the slight soreness he felt. The green-haired teen just kept on going until completely freezing, as he heard a voice speak up. Giving me a show, Midori? Mina suddenly spoke up with a small giggle, looking over at Izuku from her own bed, which was a little farther off than the one the boy had used. I mean, I'm not complaining, but aren't you with Toga? Or was it Camie? Oh, is it Ochako now? She stood up, and off the bed again, walking over to Midoriya, who was just looking down at her with an amused grin. You're trying to build your own harem, huh? I didn't think you'd be such a playboy when I saw you. She smiled up at him, poking his chest playfully. Well, I just might, and I mean, you don't even know me yet, Ashido. All you know about me is that I'm badass, a smart ass, and that I've also got a great ass. That isn't a lot to go off, is it? Izuku jokingly responded back to the pink-haired girl, keeping his eyes locked onto her own black Scara eyes with yellow pupils. Why are you bringing this up, huh? Got a crush on me after I saved you? He raised an eyebrow. I wouldn't blame you, though. I am pretty damn hot. Though kind of an asshole once you get to know me. He chuckled, his smile widening, as he noticed Mina was blushing a bright lilac at his teasing. Cute, Izuku spoke playfully, letting out a quiet laugh, as the admittedly attractive pink-skinned girl pouted, and gently punched his chest with her fists. Stop talking. Just stop, Ashido yelled out cutely, puffing her cheeks out slightly, as she lifted her gaze to meet his green eyes, pointing a finger accusingly at the taller boy. I just wanted to thank you for saving me. I know what happened, and how you ended up with your arm basically destroyed, and half your body covered in burns. She started, small pools of tears welling up in her eyes. And I know you have a regeneration quirk, but I don't know if that blast would have really hit me. I just don't even want to think about it. Thank you? Mina yelled again, throwing herself onto Izuku, as she wrapped her arms around his waist firmly, burying her face into his chest, as well. Midoriya, on the other hand, just stood there slightly shocked. He had saved her, that was true, but he had done that before in the exam, and even before that he helped people out a lot. He just had never been thanked in such a genuine way before, which really just screwed with him. Still, he slowly wrapped an arm around her waist and hugged her back, bringing his other hand up to her head, and gently patting it with a smile, letting out a soft chuckle. Well, you're welcome. Though, I've never actually gotten injured that badly before, so I was still kinda risking it, but I'm pretty sure I'm just invincible. Izuku jokes, still just holding Mina, as she keeps on hugging him. Alright, come on, girly, you can cop another feeling later. I feel like the class is gonna get more and more worried the longer we're gone, he added, slowly pulling back from Ashido, who still had a pore on her face for some reason. She looked cute, really fucking cute. The shorter girl nodded, and wiped at her eyes with her hands, her pores slowly turning into a smile. Mina, just call me Mina, and yeah, let's go. Your girlfriends are probably worried. She immediately began teasing him again. God, they're not even my girlfriends yet. And I mean, who knows, if I'm supposedly building a harem, I'll save you a spot. Midoriya quickly shot back at the pink-skinned teen, walking out of the nurse's office along with her. Hey, what happened to Boom Bitch? Is he doing okay? Oh, when I woke up he was being taken to the principal's office by Recovery Girl. Apparently blowing up a classmate's arm, and almost killing another isn't really exemplary behavior. Mina giggled lightly, and looked over Izuku's get-up, which hadn't changed much at all from their battle trial. He just nodded at her response. His outfit was still pretty much torn to shreds, or at least the top half of it. He only had about half his torso covered while having the rest of it completely bare, just showing off his muscles without even knowing it. Well, he did know it. He just didn't really give a shit. He probably deserves whatever punishment they give him. And also, if you're checking me out, can I do the same with you? Pretty much all the class did already. And God, what the fuck are most of the girls' costumes? Did you fucking see Momo? Even Ochako wore a skin-tight suit. She's the most innocent girl ever. The green-haired teen shook his head and scoffed, looking over at Mina, as the two continued walking towards the monitoring room, immediately taking notice of the teasing look she had. Mina was definitely gonna screw him over with the rest of their female classmates. Oh yeah? You've been checking us out, Midori? I saw most of the others looking over at us girls, but not you. Who's got the best costume then? No, even better. Who's got the best body, huh? Ashido teased once more, leaning in, as close to Izuku as possible, as she whispered into his ear with a flirty tone. Even if that was a question that would make most people their age blush, Izuku simply scratched over the back of his head, and shrugged slightly, still just almost nonchalant. I mean shit, that's a hard question, you know? I'm pretty sure the others in the class mostly gawked at Momo, but it's obvious that I think Camie and Toga look damn good in their costumes, Jiro too. She looks cool as hell in her outfit, and you look really good too. You went for a skin-tight outfit with a body like that? Just sheesh. You probably expected to get some looks, didn't you? He answered back thoughtfully, glancing down at the pink-skinned girl, who had again turned a bright lilac, as the two finally stepped into the monitoring room, with the rest of the class only staring at them. They had probably heard the conversation by how much their voices echoed through the halls. Oh, hey guys, Midoriya smiled, looking at his shocked classmates. Most of them were shocked anyways, with the exception of Todoroki, who just glared at him, as well as Kirishima, who was laughing heartily. Toga, Kyoka, Camie, and Mina were actually blushing, while Ochako was starting over at Izuku with a very small pout. It's good to see you up and about, young Midoriya. We were just about to begin our fourth match of the day. It's Team H, as villains against Team B, as heroes. All Might gave an enthusiastic thumbs up before turning his back on the class to look at the monitors, looking for a different building to conduct the exercise in, as the layout for the others were already known. Izuku happily nodded at All Might's words and moved to take a seat in front of a few of the monitor screens, letting out a sigh. That was the exact moment the class erupted into questions filled with concern, awe, amazement, and embarrassment for some. Midoriya, you're okay. How the hell did you survive that? Siro shouted out. How strong is your regeneration quirk? Can it save you from death? Todoroki surprisingly spoke up again. Did you really think I look good in my costume? Jiro burst forward from the crowd of classmates surrounding Izuku, with All Might just standing back and letting them have a moment. Are you, like, actually okay, Aiza baby? I was totally worried about you. What Baku bitch did was not cool at all. Camie spoke up, walking up to Izuku with teary eyes just as he stood up, the blonde girl quickly wrapping her arms around his waist to hug him firmly. Okay, one at a time, Siro. I survived because of my quirk, which rebuilt my arm completely and healed all the burns on my body. I've got no idea, Todoroki, and I don't really want to die to test that out. Kind of a creepy question if you asked me. Jiro, my answer to that is yes. You look badass. And I'm sorry, Camie. I just didn't want to give Boom Bitch the win. Izuku smiled, and continued to let the gorgeous blonde hug him, looking over at Toga, who stood close by with a small smile. She still clearly hated Camie, and every other girl who might have even thought about getting close to him, but she was getting better at handling things. Though, Izuku still did not understand how she became that attached to him in a day or so. That's so manly. Midoriya won his match, and saved Mina, and now he even has a girlfriend. Great job, man, Kirishima enthusiastically yelled, giving Izuku a toothy grin. Yeah, we're glad you're okay too, even if we haven't spoken much. Good job, Sato smiled, filled with positivity. Though on the other hand, the green-haired boy just looked over at Toga again, who appeared just about ready to fight, and win against both the spiky red-haired teen and the taller blonde. She apparently didn't like it even when Izuku hypothetically dated other girls. Thanks guys. Oh, who's supposed to be fighting now, by the way? I missed the other fights. I don't want to miss these. Izuku quickly shifted topics to save the two unsuspecting victims, letting out a small nervous chuckle. Ah yes, young Midoriya, it's Mashireo Ojiro, and Mizo Shoji against Tsuyu Ajiri, and Camie Utsushimi. We should get on with the fights or we'll run out of time. All Might spoke up with a nod, urging the students to get going to their respective spots. None of the students knew it, but the hulking man was slowly running out of time in his buff form. He only had about an hour left in him for the day. Ojiro, Shoji, and Tsuyu quickly nodded, and began to head out the door towards their respective building for the exercise, while Camie slowly pulled back from Izuku, and planted a quick kiss on his cheek, running off immediately afterwards without another word. She just gave Izuku a wink. Oh, yeah, totally not dating, huh, Midori? Mina teasingly giggled from his side. What? Deku-kun is dating Utsushimi-chan already? It's just the second day of class, Uraraka quickly called out, with her permanent blush marks appearing brighter than ever. No, he isn't. I'm the only one who's asked him out on a date, and we're going tomorrow. Stop shipping Izuku with random girls, Toga immediately yelled out in Izuku's defense. Well, she wasn't really defending him, just more so cementing herself as the only potential girlfriend for him. Oh, but what if Midori wants to go on dates with other girls, Toga-chan? Like, wanna go out on a date with me, Midori? I'll make sure you have a good time. Ashido teased again, leaning in close to Izuku's ear, only to quickly be stopped by Toga. Nope. Get away from him. You succubus! He's going on a date with me, not you! Himiko squealed out loud with a menacing look, though still slightly flustered, as she remembered the compliments Izuku had given her before. He really had straight up said he found her to be extremely attractive, and that just embarrassed her for some reason. Oh, okay, students, that's enough. The 5 minutes of prep time for Team H has passed. Team B may enter the building now. All Might's sweat dropped, glancing back at the green-haired teen standing between Toga and Mina. That was definitely a complicated situation, even more so if you mixed Ochako and Camie in there. Midoriya-san, it is improper to lead on girls and continue to date others. Have you no shame? Tenya suddenly spoke up, pointing an accusatory finger at Izuku. What? I literally haven't done shit. Ida, Toga, and Mina started fighting. I just happened to be in the middle of it. Izuku defended himself with a soft laugh. Midoriya is already lost in a sea of darkness. I'd be surprised if he comes out of his situation unscathed. Tokoyami shook his head slightly and sighed, while Kaminari only yelled, What do you mean? A sea of darkness? He's literally got half the girls in the class trying to date him. He even has some of the hottest ones. That's not a sea of darkness. He's just drowning in women, the electrical quirk user lamented, pounding his fist against one of the nearby tables. Students, enough about young Midoriya's love life. The match has already begun. All Might called out once more, directing the class attention towards the monitor screens, which showed Camie and Tsuyu making a quick infiltration into the building. Oh, this'll be interesting. Izuku smiled, as he leant closer to the displays, watching attentively, as he immediately dropped the topic the girls still wanted to fight about. The dating thing would just have to wait until later on. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.